Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Christian Conservative, your trusted source for bold, unfiltered news and analysis on the issues that matter most to Christian conservatives. I'm KJ along with Michelle. How are you doing tonight, Michelle?
Hey guys, I am well today.
Good. We're a little late tonight. Just dealing with family stuff, Sunday stuff. But we are here. Thank God we are here. And so we have a lot to talk about tonight, from faith and family to politics and culture. Folks, you know, we tackle the hard truths and stand firm on biblical principles. So as I always say, join us as we expose the lies, defend our values, and fight for truth in a world that desperately needs it. Again, hit that like button if you're just joining. It really helps us on YouTube. So hit that like button and subscribe. Stay informed, inspired, and empowered right here with Christian Conservative. All right, folks. So we have, again, as I mentioned, so much to cover tonight. So I see you guys in the chat. Hello, Anna, Wendy, the S-Files. Hello. Again, we are coming a little later tonight, but I'm happy that we are here. All right, so we got to break down this CNN video. So you guys know the tariffs are here. President Trump announced, what was it, April 2nd. Was that Thursday? Do you know, Michelle? Was that Thursday? Yeah. I think it was Wednesday. It was either Wednesday or Thursday. I think it was Wednesday that he was, which he called, was it Liberation Day. Liberation Day for these tariffs that we knew were coming. Mm-hmm. And here in this clip is Agricultural Secretary Brooke Rollins, and she didn't hold back on Jake Tapper, talking about these tariffs and what everyday Americans are talking about with these tariffs. So I want you guys to take a look, and then we're going to respond to this. All right, so let's see here. All right, this is clip 4. All right, here we go.
Fed Chair Jerome Powell says that these tariffs could drive inflation back up and throttle growth. JP Morgan raised the likelihood of a recession by the end of this year from 40% to 60%. And take a listen to what Republican Senator Ted Cruz, a Trump ally from your home state of Texas, had to say.
If we're in a scenario 30 days from now, 60 days from now, 90 days from now, with massive American tariffs and massive tariffs on American goods in every other country on earth, that is a terrible outcome. It's terrible for America. It will hurt jobs and hurt America.
So how long do you anticipate this tariff chaos is going to be going on? 30 days, 60 days, 90 days?
Well, first of all, Jake, thank you for having me. I think it's really important to realize that last Wednesday was when the president announced this new American order, the new American economic plan. We're now 2 days in, right? You've got 2 days of data. Everyone, especially on your side, on the left, is freaking out.
I'm not on the left.
But at the end of the day, listen, this whole concept, all right, Jake, thank you. This whole concept is about rebuilding an American economy around American goods, around American industry. We do already live under a tariff regime in this country, but it's the tariff regime of China, of Mexico, of Brazil, of Australia, of countries that Mexico won't take our corn, Australia won't take our beef. The country of Honduras takes more pork than the entire European Union does, American pork, I should say. So from our farming and ranching perspective, which is what I'm focused on, but happy to talk about anything, that it is time for a change, and that's what this president evoked last.
All right. So she really laid it out straight to him, and she called him on his leftist, on the leftist slant and bias that he has with the Trump administration. What are your thoughts on this, Michelle?
I mean, he's so smug, and he's so left. He has 2 left feet. He is the mascot of left. We could give him a million different names. He is left wing. He is one of the ones that has pushed the most radical ideas from the beginning of COVID, anti-Trump, you name it. So for him to say I'm not left, and to say it so smugly, like all of a sudden he's defensive. Why would you need to be defensive? I don't know. He could just come back and I'm just a journalist, or he could just been quiet and let her speak.
Right.
So they want to criticize. And again, I love her response. And we now have 2 days of data. two days at the time when this aired. 2 days. They don't want to give it a week. They don't want to give it 2 weeks. And they also want to take things out of context. Of course, they want to, oh, this is what Ted Cruz said, but let's talk about the rest of what he said. Let's talk about what question came before that. So people are really just responding to, hey, this could happen. And if it did, it could be bad. How about we give it 30 days, 60 days, 90 days? And she was right. Don't come at somebody who actually has the facts, not the ones that he likes to make up, but the ones that actually exist. So well done. And I love her little laugh. Like, yeah, that's right. Sure, Jay. Yeah.
Exactly.
Sure.
Exactly. And the thing about it is they're so biased. It's so clear that they're biased on this stuff. And they're not talking about what has happened as a result to these tariffs. So many countries are negotiating, want to discuss lowering their tariffs now that President Trump has implemented the increase on the tariffs. So we know, what was it? Vietnam lowered theirs. Israel lowered theirs. As far as the auto companies are concerned, I just read out today in the Wall Street Journal, Audi and I think it was Jaguar have now decided, or was it Volkswagen? One of those, Audi and Volkswagen, or Audi and Jaguar have announced that they are bringing more, they're going to open facilities, manufacturing companies here in the U.S. to avoid these tariffs. So what does that mean? That means more jobs, more Americans working in these manufacturers. So they're not talking about all of the good things that we have seen come out of these tariffs.
I mean, before now, they never mentioned tariffs.
Right.
And that just goes to show how much they don't care about businesses in America. They have never really cared about American businesses or American workers, because if they knew, we've been being robbed for decades. Decades, other countries have been putting on tariffs that were 20%, 30%. This is not new. It's just that we're noticing it because we want to call Trump out on doing something we should have done a long time ago. And he's really forcing the hand of businesses who have gone overseas, cheap labor, or overseas whole nations that have refused to buy our product. We're making things right. And by making things right, we're forcing businesses to make things here in the USA. That's going to boost our economy. And it's just a great negotiating tool, frankly. But this comes down again. This is not something taught in school. This is something very few people know anything about. So it's kind of like that fancy new term they're going to throw around and cause more panic because they like chaos.
Exactly. As you said, Michelle, and we're seeing some of these things actually happen. The tariffs raise the cost of foreign imports, as we know, but it also, that makes American-made goods more competitive. So the result, as we've seen with Audi and with Jaguar, companies invest more here at home. Yeah. So again, and it's President Trump is using this as a trade leverage. That's all it is. It's a negotiating point, a negotiating tool that he's using. And we're starting to see it help. We're starting to see it come around. So there may be a little tough, hard things to go through over the next couple of weeks. But I think within a matter of months, we're going to see a huge difference, and it's going to be good for Americans.
Oh, yeah. So for me, look at what we went through with the last administration. Come on now. We saw everything just fall apart. Everything was burning. It was horrible. I would be happy if we figure all this out by the end of the year. Patience is a virtue. I'm ready to be patient with this. A small business owner, I know some of my product may go up, some of the goods that we get for building and in construction, but in the long run, we are going to be better off. And let's face facts, the world needs the American economy. The world needs us to be successful. And who better than a president who is nothing but a business owner in his own right? Past presidents couldn't do what he does because they don't have the experience, the knowledge, or the guts to do what President Trump does at the negotiating table.
Exactly. And when these leftists say tariffs raise prices, we need to remind them inflation was worse under Biden without these new tariffs. So, and this is what I'm talking about when we talk about the bias of the mainstream media. So here they are now being adversarial to the Trump administration's tariff policies, which, I mean, generally speaking, you want the media to challenge, the government, challenge, these policies and things like that. But the infuriating part about this is they failed to do this when Biden was in office. They didn't push back against the inflation. They tried to paint a narrative that it wasn't happening. They tried to paint a narrative that Biden wasn't losing it, wasn't senile and not really there within the last couple of years of his presidency. Jake Tapper was one of the main ones. And now they're doing the opposite. Now they want to be these adversarial news people. So This is what we're talking about.
I don't think it's boding well with the American public. Like, everything has been exposed. They were exposed. So it's kind of hard to pretend like all of a sudden you're a serious journalist when all of 10 seconds ago, we exposed you for being a liar, a fraudster. I mean, entire networks of spreading not just lies, but they were dividing families. They were pitting neighbor against neighbor. They were race baiters, you name it. So all of a sudden, we're not going to take them seriously. I didn't take them seriously for a long time. I'm for sure not going to start now.
Right. Yeah. So we will continue to keep you all updated on this. We're moms. So we're the ones out here in the grocery stores, in the, shopping, Walmart, all of the aisles. And so we can kind of tell what's going on with these prices, as can you all. So what do you all think about these tariffs? I see you guys sounding off in the chat. And do you believe that the mainstream media has been biased against President Trump? Please continue to sound off, and don't forget to hit that like button. It really helps us here on YouTube. It helps our channel. So please hit that like button. And if you haven't done so already, subscribe. Certainly subscribe. Also, your super chats are the best way to get your voice heard in the conversation, and another great way to support us. So we thank you for it all. All right. So speaking of the biased media, Megyn Kelly gave it to them in a New York Times interview. So she recently was being interviewed by a New York Times reporter. And she was kind of hesitant to go on the interview, but she thought, she wanted to go on, and just it's always good for conservatives to go on mainstream media or even leftist media and really just get our voices heard, because sometimes people that listen to these podcasts or to their podcasts or read their papers, and they hear a conservative really pushing the facts, it opens eyes. And my goodness, Michelle, did you get a chance to watch that whole interview with Megyn Kelly?
It's good. It's good.
It was so good. It was really good. And guys, I encourage you to check it out, because first of all, I love Megyn Kelly. I mean, when you think of Queen Mama Bear, Megyn Kelly is it. She is an advocate for women, an advocate for children, an advocate for mothers. I mean, the list goes on, and it was a really good interview, and she hit back hard. So I wanted to give you guys a little snippet of this, and then we're going to talk about this interview. All right, let's see here. All right, this is clip 3. So in this clip, I think this one is where she's talking about how she doesn't regret voting for Trump and why she voted for Trump. Take a look.
My own personal opinion is most of the allegations against him are much more complicated than the mainstream media would have you believe. And I don't think Donald Trump is a rapist or a sexual assaulter. I do think he's taken inappropriate liberties with women and gotten handsy with them in a way he's owned himself. Okay, years ago when he was a celebrity, and it is what it is. That's the past. But it's just about so much more than that. We are talking about how many people dying at the southern border because of the invasion that we've suffered under Joe Biden. We're talking about Laken Riley, whose killer was let in under Biden. We put him on a taxpayer flight down to Georgia where he murdered her. I don't give a shit about Trump getting handsy with somebody 20 years ago. I want someone who will close the border, which he has. I want someone who will keep boys out of my daughter's sports, which he has. I want someone who will stand up to the insane DEI policies so that white kids will stop hearing in school that they're born with some original sin from which they cannot recover, which he has.
Do you think you could be at Fox now in the way that you were before?
Can I rein back in the opinion me and like do what I used to do without sharing it as much and just sort of be straight down the middle? If sometimes opinionated, I could, but I don't have any interest in that. And I actually don't think that's the model for
There she is. She said it.
I loved it. I
was screaming.
Man, no nonsense. She was just shooting straight. She was on point the entire interview. And I love that she's like, am I going to rein it back in? Just kind of to appease you? Am I going to stop thinking and speaking my mind and having opinions to make everybody happy for Fox? So basically, no, I'm not. There's no need to. I loved it.
Yeah, so did I. And she really went down the list of why we all voted for Trump. And not only that, but he has addressed it all. He has already addressed many of the main core issues that we all had. The border, he's only been in office for a couple of months and it's down like 90%.
Yep.
What else was it? What else was she talking about? The border.
It was the women's protecting girls' sports, protecting women's sports. I mean, President Trump came out and all of the things that he promised us, he hit like 50% day two. He came out and said, this is what I'm going to do. Here we are. I mean, Doge came out, they panicked, but he told us he was going to get to the bottom of all the spending. He was going to get to the bottom of corruption. He was going to close the border. He was going to fight back against fentanyl. He was not going to let other countries rip us off, hence the tariffs. And now they're mad about that. I mean, everything he said he was going to do, he's doing. He was about actions. And I love what she said about, look, how many times do we want him to confess? Because Trump has confessed. He said, look, this is what I did years ago. Yeah, this is what I did. This is what I love what she said. I don't give a dang. I don't care if he got handsy back in the day with some ladies. What I care about are my daughters. I care about people being murdered. I care about the borders. I care about the nation. Yeah, that's what we all cared about. That's why we voted. And that's why he's the president.
Exactly. And so we had Kamala Harris come out this week and she made some stupid remark. Did you see that?
Are we ever surprised when Kamala Harris makes a stupid remark? I would be more surprised when she makes a smart one.
Right. But yeah. She came out and she made a remark saying that we know that many of the Trump supporters are regretful for their vote. I think I have it here. Let me see if I have it.
Where are they? I'm going to find them. Who are they?
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I know.
Referring to.
Right, exactly. But this is what they try to do. This is their lies that they make up. I don't think I have it here, but yeah, no, we don't regret our votes. We don't regret it at all. We're actually happy because he's already addressed many of the issues that we were upset about. I mean, the trade in China, we were just talking about. He imposed these tariffs, the economy and jobs. He's already looking at passing historic tax cuts, slashing regulations. The list goes. The border. We talked about that. Men and women's sports. That was a big issue that we were championing for him to address. He's done that. He's reversed the Title IX regulations that Biden put in. I mean, the list goes on. They don't even have a clue. They really don't. It looks like they are actually doubling down on the nonsense that got them, that got Kamala Harris rejected. Is it not?
Well, they are. And again, they don't have real news. So let's just break it down. They don't have anything to cover. that's helpful to the country. So they're grasping not at straws, but on the only thing they have. And the only thing that they had for 4.5 years was, or no, for 8 years, I'm going to say during his previous administration, that's how much we hate him. We hate him. We hate him. We can't like him. We can't like him. No, everything he does is wrong. That's all they have. Again, I go back to the fact that they're not real journalists. And for Kamala Harris to say his supporters, let's get something straight. There are people that voted for him because they couldn't stand her. And then there are Trump supporters. Trump supporters are not upset. Some people that just decided on the off chance they're going to vote for Donald Trump, they probably didn't support him. They just were fed up and said, there's no way I'm voting for Kamala Harris. Right. So 2 different categories. And what they're not also talking about is the things behind the scenes that these tariffs are putting in place and then stopping the immigration. Behind the scenes, I saw Nike stock. So I was watching the stock market. My son does some trading for us, and we're watching some of these massive companies. They use slave labor. Wow. And so as I'm seeing these factories having to shift their mentality and where they build and how, all I was looking at is like, oh my gosh, we never talk about the Uyghur Muslims. We never talk about children that are, as young as 5 years old in third world countries that are slave labor for us so we can get our goods cheap. This is a byproduct. By changing the tariffs and having companies come here, there's a ripple effect that actually saves people overseas. It changes a lot of things on the world stage. Nobody's going to talk about that. I am. Here at Christian Conservative, we are. But I'm looking at all of the other good things that he is doing for the world, not just our nation.
Yeah, you are absolutely right. And that's a good point, Michelle, about this slave labor. I mean, there are so many things that President Trump has affected that were kind of like latent effects of these policies. You mentioned the slave labor that has been affected by using these foreign governments and foreign countries for manufacturing. Same thing with the border, with getting that border closed down and managed. Now we have slowed the human trafficking. I mean, that southern border was a huge place for human trafficking, for children, child trafficking, and all of that. And so, this is another thing that we're talking about with this biased media. All those years, 4 years Biden was in office, and we had this open border. They never called them on this stuff. Talk about human trafficking, talk about child trafficking. Instead of, they talked about children in cages, which was a byproduct of getting these illegals, at the border or coyotes who had children. But yet, why weren't they mentioning anything about child trafficking?
No, because they don't want to talk about slave labor that's existing now that is larger. There's more slavery right now, today as we are alive, than there ever was when we talk about the Civil War and everything that, African Americans, slavery is never good. We could go back to the beginning of time if we really want to argue that. But no, they want to focus on very specific types of slavery. More slaves exist today, and it is just as atrocious, if not more so, than it ever was, because you have more access. People can, from the internet to your phones, the amount of women and children and different types of slavery, because they are working in these fields, working in these factories, or they're working in other things. It's horrendous, but the left doesn't want to see it, recognize it, or talk about it, because then you really have to do something about it. This president is someone who will do something about it. And we need more media like us to actually say something about it. I love that. We're not going to be quiet, folks. We need to start being louder, in fact.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And if you guys are just joining, please hit that like button. It really helps to amplify our voice here on YouTube. It helps to grow our audience. So certainly hit that like button and subscribe if you haven't subscribed so already. Please do that. You are absolutely right, Michelle. And I think another reason why mainstream media doesn't like to talk about the slave labor going on in other countries, talk about the trafficking of young children, of women across the southern border, is because it's not being done by the people they like to push the narrative about.
Right.
So, they always try to push the racial narrative, or try to push the call out these types of stuff if the perpetrators are not of color. But because we know that when we talk about this slave labor, when we talk about actual slavery still going on today in many of these countries, it's being done by brown people.
Yes.
Brown people. And so because of that, the mainstream media doesn't want to talk about it. It only works for them and the left if this slavery, if this type of violence or things are being perpetrated by white people, by European people. That's when they want to call it out. But if it's done by anybody else, which, as you mentioned, the largest portion of slavery is actually done by Arab. It's done by the Arab countries, by brown people. They don't want to talk about it. And it's really sad. It really is.
You know, here in Maryland, just this week, our we're here in Maryland. Our delegates voted for a group to get together and allocated money to talk about reparations.
Right.
So they now have a reparations. They want to talk about reparations. This is going to come back and bite all of these far left states in the U.S. Mark my words. You mess around, talk about reparations while ignoring actual slaves living in your state right this second. What about stopping that slavery? You are actively watching it happen to human beings alive right here and now, and you want to ignore it while talking about something that happened hundreds of years ago. That's going to come back to all of us, and we need to start again calling it out. And one of our delegates did. She stood up and she started calling out names of people that were trafficked, people that were harmed to this day. And I'll have to get that clip to us for this next time. Lauren is great.
Who did that? Was it LaToya or was it somebody else?
No, it was Lauren. And I'll get her name for you. But it was fantastic that she spoke out and said, I'm going to keep talking about current victims. You do not have the right to talk about victims from 200 years ago if you are not going to talk about the ones that are in your backyard right now. And that's how I feel about this.
Yes, I 100% agree. I 100% agree with that. Again, as you mentioned, is the transatlantic slave trade, slavery in general is awful. It is evil. It is evil. We call out a lot of evil on this channel. It is what was done, 400 years ago or however many years ago was evil. But we as a nation have taken steps to rectify it.
Yes.
To rectify it. And, what they're calling for, these reparations, we're going to wind up paying for our own reparations. It doesn't even make sense. It makes no sense. We, the hardworking people, taxpayers, are going to wind up paying for reparations. And I said this last week on Poppin' Politics regarding this. If they're talking about making so-called people who have European ancestry, pay for them, folks, we got a wake-up call. Not many people left in the United States with just straight European ancestry. No. So this doesn't even make sense.
KJ, I laugh at it because I said they're gonna mess around and look at my children. So I know that my great grandparents or great grandparents, they were slaves. We have all their documentation, the whole 9 yards, and it was horrible. Yes. But my children are as fair-skinned, and I have two redheads out there. So two redheads, couple of blondes, blue-eyed. You don't know who was a descendant of slaves. So their narrative is actually just to try to get money to what they consider, brown descendants. But how far are you going to go? What kind of DNA test you going to take? Because you're going to be really surprised to find out who was a slave, who was an indentured servant when they came over here. Again, it's talking points. And as far as I'm concerned, it's money that's being thrown away. And I can't wait till Doge gets involved in this and says, who got the money for this study and what did they study? Because it's not going to end to anything. It'll be another Gavin Newsom gaffe where he says, we're going to study it about that money. We don't think now's the right time to give it to you guys. It's never going to be the right time.
Exactly, Michelle. Exactly. There's so many mixtures, so many people, who there are actually Black people or brown people, whatever you want to call, that were that had slaves.
Yes.
One of them was Sonny Holston. She said her family, Miss Sonny Holston, Miss Restorative Justice Queen, she found out that her ancestors were slaveholders. How many thousands of people are like that in the United States?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it doesn't make sense. It really doesn't. Let's get on something. Let's move on. Let's talk about the education. So the best way to lift people out of poverty, to enrich people, to make people wealthy, one is to create an education system that works.
Yes.
I mean, you have people in Baltimore City who graduated and can't read. They literally cannot read. They went through all 12 years of education in Baltimore City, and they still cannot read nor write in 2025.
At a national level, we're looking at 40% of our nation's children, 50% maybe, that can read at grade level. Throw grade out there, third grade from their assessments, some third, fourth grade, or eighth grade. So we're talking about half a nation, and we're talking about 1 to 2 generations that cannot read well, that are functioning illiterates. And we're not talking about, that's thousands. That's thousands upon thousands, and probably in the millions at this point that are just getting by. So yeah, educate people, give them a real opportunity to learn. Oh wait, they had it. The school system squandered that. So that's a conversation we've had, because that's 13 years of somebody's life. Right.
It's tragic. It's tragic. So we'll continue to follow that. Again, as we mentioned, the leftists and they continue to push all of this. They want us looking at everything but what is actually is necessary to assisting us in achieving something, is necessary in assisting us for us to be successful. They don't want us looking at that stuff. They want us looking at everything else. And one of those things is this whole trans agenda. So we already know, we talked about this before, the trans agenda for our children. We have talked about this many times on our show, and we'll continue to talk about it on Christian Conservative, because it is one of the, if not the number one issues for the future, with this trans agenda. And they are not backing down. Here, recently, Dr. Phil has really taken on a lot of this agenda, and he's tried to use his background in psychology to kind of put some, give some realness, some type of, let them know that this isn't correct. And they just don't want to hear it. And here he is providing some facts to this transgender woman about how this will negatively impact, this agenda will negatively impact our children and society. And she just doesn't want to hear it. Take a look at this. This is clip 6.
When you look at the science, and listen, it's not a matter of opinion. If you look at the science, the male advantage over females, there are functional differences between biological men and biological women. Men have 57% better grip strength. They have 54% better quad strength. They have 89% more bicep strength. They have 90% more upper body strength. They have 33% higher vertical jumps. They have 162% more punching power. If you get into specific sports activities in terms of running and swimming events, in running, they tend to be 12% faster overall. When you translate this into races, if you have a 12% difference between overall trans athletes, here are some examples to demonstrate the male sports performance advantage over a woman. A man would finish a 3,000 meter track race about a minute faster. A 100-meter swim, a man would be about 5.7 seconds faster. A 200-meter swim, about 11.5 seconds faster. A 800-meter swim, a minute faster. So when you look at those things, these are races that are usually determined by tenths or hundredths of a second. So how do you answer that, Blossom?
Absolutely. Respectfully, Dr. Phil, I'm going to need you to have several seats. Let's be clear. Trans women, again, are women. What you're showing me are male statistics, and trans women are not males. Everything that I said can actually be proven. It's scientifically proven because, again, it's almost like you're trying to call trans women men, and that is not what trans women are. Trans women work just as hard as cis women to compete. And when we talk about bone density levels, again, there are some women who are stronger and have faster agility than trans women. It is a case by case basis. I don't know why you're trying to group a group of trans people into one ideology that is false. It sounds like conservative propaganda. And I think you have drunk the Kool-Aid and have gotten lost in the sauce. I'm sorry, Dr. Phil. I'm going to disagree with you. And I think that the statistics that you've shown me prove nothing when it comes to trans women. Get up there and show me statistics specifically with trans women and cis women, and then we can revisit this conversation. Otherwise, I think you're being biased. I think that it is baloney and propaganda, and I think it needs to be fixed.
Oh my gosh. So you saw what he said.
Ooh.
I'm talking about Blossom. What are your thoughts here, Michelle?
Yeah, I'm gonna tell this to the whole world. I'm gonna say this. Call me cis one more time. There is no cis woman. I am a woman. I was born a woman. I've had children, 6 of them. As a woman, I can tell you how I was in labor. As a woman, I can tell you a whole lot of things of being a woman. I have zero respect. And can we all just agree and end this cis nonsense? You want us to respect some pronouns and everything else. Don't you dare call us cis women. We are women. So if you want to say something about comparing women to trans women, fine. But that's where you need to end it. And talking about several seats, he could take a whole row. He could take several rows back. He could sit back as far as he wants to go. He can leave the whole facility. Because when you bring facts, you cannot argue facts. Now you're just bringing your opinions, and the irony, the audacity to say you're just taking a group of trans people and putting them together in one category. That's what they've been doing to everybody, is grouping and putting into categories. In fact, that's how we compare and contrast, as we take groups and we put them in categories. And no, Blossom, you were born a man. Your genitalia was in place, so you had the advantages of growing up as a man before you decided that you wanted to be a woman. That is what Dr. Phil brought, straight facts. And we have to stop pretending and giving into this la-la land, this delusion that boys who grow up and decide the next week that they want to be women all of a sudden didn't have biological advantages. That is a lie. That is a lie from the pits of hell. And that's literally where I mean it's coming from the pits of hell. Satan has flooded the market with that lie, changing what God created.
Yeah, I totally agree. And to everyone watching, do not use this language of cis woman, cisgender, and all of this type of stuff, because it's very important. See, this is what they tried. The left has tried and is almost successful in capturing the language. This is what the Marxists do, communists. They first target the language to change. So this is why it is very important. Do not use it. We are women. We are women, 100% biological females. And do not start saying this whole cis woman and, all this type of stuff, because that's what they want us to do. And then you go down this whole rabbit hole of what is a trans woman and all this type of stuff. Just as you mentioned, that is a man. Blossom is a man cosplaying as a woman.
Yeah.
And anybody with eyes can see it. Okay. And Dr. Phil read that data. That was factual data, the statistics correctly. And he still didn't want to accept it. So this is he doesn't want to accept that he's a man. So how are we going to expect him to accept data and facts and statistics because when he won't even accept that he's a man? So the delusion delusion is way gone, far gone.
Yeah, but the argument was over before it began with Blossom and Dr. Phil. I think it's interesting, and I love this, that all of the Oprah appointed or people that would come on our show and are regulars are now kind of looking at it like, and they're kind of doing the exact opposite. And I just want to say that I love that for Dr. Phil and Dr. Oz and all those who were there saying, okay, it's time to just be realistic. Here is reality, folks. You can have your feelings, but feelings, when it comes to biological growth, your feelings have nothing to do about it. Nothing to do with it.
Absolutely. And thank God that most Americans agree with us. A 2022 Washington Post poll found that 58% of Americans opposed allowing transgender women to compete with women in college and professional sports. And it may be even higher now. So this was a major issue as we were talking about President Trump earlier. This was a major issue for President Trump. And I think that got him elected. And I think it was one that many Christians, many Bible believing people, it was at the top of their list too. Very much so people that I know that had not voted for President Trump in the past, but did decide to vote for him specifically because of this trans agenda. Have you heard much about that, Michelle?
Yeah, well, and again, Trump is winning over and over because he's got these 80-20 issues, 80%, 90-10 issues. He knows how to take the issues that average everyday Americans care about. That was an average, the lowest poll that I ever saw, which was like a very small comparison, was something like 70%. 70%, which means only 30% of people in that particular poll thought that trans people should compete in any competition. And I mean any competition. If you are a trans male or a trans female, you should not be playing in that sport. You should be whatever your biological DNA is, that's where you should be competing until we have a big enough field for trans or anything goes type of competition. That's fine.
Right.
Biological.
Yeah. No, I agree. Yeah. The natural traditional sports, female and male, they need to compete in how they were born.
Yeah.
Or another option is to create another lane for them. Totally. Exactly. They can compete against each other, but they don't want to do that because most of them have left their biologically assigned sports because they were losing. And so now they want to compete against women to beat up on them if it's some type of contact sport, or to totally obliterate them in any type of competition because they can.
That's why I love Dr. Phil's feed. His facts came in and they were about arm strength, upper body strength, agility, so that you can't deny that even if they're not side by side competing like in tennis matches against one another, that they can just physically do more with their upper body, that they're going to beat women's records by a full minute or by 5 seconds or 20 seconds on average. And that's not even the skilled male. This is an average male, which is why we have the Leah Thompson, the swimmer that was, 400th and could come out in first place. Below average male athlete has an advantage over women.
Right.
So that's what I liked about this. They can jump higher. It's okay. God made male and female. They have strengths, they have weaknesses. And we should just acknowledge that and move on. And I laugh because I'm sitting here giggling and smiling like it's just absurd that we're still having this conversation. It is absurd.
It's freakish. But right now we are in a freakish time, folks. We are in a very freakish time. I believe it's the Antichrist. I believe it's part of the Antichrist culture. And speaking of that takes us to this interview on PBD podcast. So PBD, Patrick Bet David, he's a businessman and a media personality. I know he voted for Trump. I believe he voted. Yeah, he was a Trump supporter. But he's been around for a while. He's just been like in sports and just general media. And then he started really getting into conservative media and pushing out conservative material content on YouTube. And so again, he has a podcast called the PBD podcast. You guys should check it out. It's actually really good, very good conversations. Well, recently he had on actor Terrence Howard. So Terrence Howard, for those of you guys who may not know him, he's been around a long time. He was in The Best Man 1 and 2, and he was also in the first Iron Man. Marvel's Iron Man. He was in that, and he's been in some movies. He's been in a ton of movies.
Yeah,
he's
been around.
Yeah, he's been around for a while. Well, he was on the PBD podcast, and he's kind of gotten away from acting, and he's gotten into this space of talking about space and
physics,
right.
Travel, yeah.
Yes, he has been really gotten into that, and so most of the podcast was about that. However, toward the end of the podcast, he started talking about Hollywood, and he started talking about P. Diddy. So I want to bring to you that part, because this is what I thought was really interesting, not only for us, just for culture, but also biblically interesting. Before I do, I want to acknowledge our super chat here, Wendy. I think Wendy, this is the first super chat of the night. Thank you so much. She says, we need to stress trans men don't play. Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we need to stress it. Right. Yeah. They shouldn't play. They should not play. All right. So thank you so much, Wendy, for that super chat. And speaking of that, let's take a look at this, what Terrence Howard said. Now, he's talking about his experience in Hollywood. This is clip 1. Take a look.
Well, because losing out money, you got to take drugs. You're going through so much shit to try and deal with life. You are literally, it's an unhealthy space. And so eventually you're going to go too far. Who knows what happened to Philip? Who knows what he had to do in order to get to where he was at? There's a lot of things that people do that end up sitting and they can't get over it. And they got to keep getting high, hoping to get it out of their head. But when you lose your man card, that's the only thing I can think of. You lose your damn man card.
What is that? What do you mean by that?
You give up your ability, your right to being a man. A man don't take it. A man gives it. So when you give up that man card, you don't get that back.
Are you saying what I think you're saying?
No, I'm saying what I'm saying. You don't get that back. You come into this world as a man one time. You give up that right for anything, for fear of being hurt, fear of somebody doing something, for wanting to gain something. When you give up that man card right, you lose some spiritual energy that has always been pushing through. Like if a woman gives up her womanly right of being a mother and taking care of her family and do all those things, when you give up those things, but when you give up your manhood, I've never seen somebody recover from it. That was all the people that went to the puffy parties. That was all the people that did all those things thinking that there was never going to be a consequence for what they were doing. Get punked out and pimped out by some greater desire. You shouldn't have a greater desire than being a man. So I believe that's a big problem with a lot of the actors out there, because they get fluid. And next thing you know, once you go fluid, it's gone. You don't have any foundation to pull yourself back from. So maintain your man card, no matter what.
Man, I mean, one of the things you're seeing, you went to a whole different place.
Sorry.
No, I get it. So you see some guys struggling with that. You see Bieber struggling with that. You see some of these guys struggling with that.
They can't get it out of their head. They can't get it out of their head. The things that they did, no matter how they did it, whether they were drunk or high or whatever, you gave up your man card. You need therapy. And that's the thing that hurts them the most. And so they end up on drugs, end up every way to try and get rid of any principles there are. And that's what the business does. And the women that
Wow. When he said that, the first thing that came to my mind was they are going against God's design for not only their bodies, but their lives.
Yeah.
And they have been part of an evil. And an evil is not a person or thing. Let's just really get that. It is a corruption of a person or thing. So they have been corrupted so much that they lose it. They lose it. That's basically what he was saying. What are your thoughts on that, Michelle?
I mean, he mentioned a lot of actors from the past. I think in that segment, he had mentioned Heath Ledger and others. And I wanted to think about the difference between giving up your man card and having it stolen from you, because some of them were child actors that had it taken from them. And so I think they live with a different type of haunting. And that's what I see in Justin Bieber, like our last podcast when we saw that clip. It wasn't just that he gave that card. It was stolen from him as a child. Right. And this is what's happening and has happened in Hollywood and the music industry. And he goes on, he talks about how because he wouldn't give that up. I love that he says, are you saying what I think you're saying? He said, no, I'm saying what I'm saying. I'm not trying to mince words. He was just trying to use etiquette for the show, I suppose, and saying, when you give that, you can't take it back. And then how many times did they give that away over and over because they compromised? And in life, we have to just really realize we can't keep signing these contracts with the devil, because there are demonic entities that you are signing your life over. And we're not even talking about some of these people are physically sacrificing human beings, like sacrificing other things. There's a whole kind of level of sacrifice in this Hollywood music industry. But we're talking about they're sacrificing their bodies. They're giving that up to other men in this instance, specifically to other men. And you can't undo, unlive that experience. And how do you get it back? You're right. You struggle with it for the rest of your life. And there's a place for forgiveness, but a lot of them cannot forgive themselves. And if somebody doesn't get Christ to them and introduce them to Christ and show them how they can, ask for that forgiveness so they don't have to do that, that the sins are wiped clean, that they don't have to be a part of that, and then teach them to forgive themselves, we're going to keep seeing people unalive themselves or overdose. And it's sad and it's scary, but it's happening still. This is not stopped. Putting away one predator did not stop the 35 to 200 that he had in his home. Where are the other ones?
Yeah, you are exactly right. And I feel so sorry for the child actresses that have gone through these, and it's and we know that they do ritualistic. These are ritualistic things. Mm-hmm. This is the occult. This is the Antichrist. These are people with an agenda to ritualize sexual deviancy. That's what it is. To children. Not a lot. We're not even talking about the adults yet. But as he said, the Bible talks about, again, sin is sin, but to sin against your body, that the Bible does designate, it does single out that particular sin. That is a major sin. And when you couple that with this ritualistic aspect of what they're doing in Hollywood to children with the abortion, to just the ritualistic parts of it, it's something else. It's really something else. And this is why we're seeing, as you said, Michelle, people, trying to cover it and with drugs and alcohol. They're trying to use that as some type of way to either forget it or to what's the word?
They're just trying to cope.
Right. Cope. But one thing I will disagree with him is they are not, it's not over for them, because we know that we serve a God that can do all things. And God has conquered evil and continues to conquer evil through his Holy Spirit. So these people they need to get out of there, get out of that space, get out of the way from those demonic people, and choose Christ, choose God as best they can. And we need to pray for them. We need to pray for them, and try to get out of it. They can get out of it with the help of God, but they have to seek Him, and remove all of the people that mean them harm, remove them from their lives. And I know that's probably very difficult for them to do.
That's the hardest, because again, when we say ritualistic, this is, we're going to sodomize you and you are going to be in a contract with us. And this contract, this is actually a physical representation of signing your soul to the devil. You are saying, I'm going to allow these evil things to be done, and you are going to give me money and fame, and you're going to have a contract where I can't make my money on my own because you own part of that. So some of them are giving up their livelihoods, and I know Wendy called it out there, and some others already know. We got Cat Williams, and even Terrence Howard. He was like, look, I was having to do the, what do they call them, the minstrel shows. Like, he's still not able to be cast the way he wants to because he's not going to give up that card. And that's what's going to happen to the ones in Hollywood. They're going to, Cat Williams for a long time, people thought he was crazy. And I saw so much stuff. I was like, he just told the truth. Wendy Williams was calling that out years ago. There are rap artists that were calling it out in their music. I had to go back and listen to some 80s, 90s. I was listening to some songs, and I thought, I never paid attention to those lyrics calling out exactly what's happening now. Right. And so they have to untangle themselves from physical contracts, not only the spiritual contract that they signed. And it's the spiritual contract that God can cancel, can change, and working out the rest. So again, we got to keep praying for them. And I'm just praying that God will send people to their aid, because that is a very dark place. And those dreams and nightmares have got to be vivid, and they replay. So it's tough.
Yeah, it is. It is. And he was not finished. So now in this next clip, he talks about Diddy. So take a listen to this, what he talks about his encounter with Diddy. This is clip 2.
What was the consequences when you said no?
Puffy invited me for weeks, asking me to come and teach him how to, wanted me to be his acting coach for a while. Go there, and he's sitting around just looking. I'm like, okay, what's the material you want to work on? He's just looking at me. Then next thing you know, okay, hey, will you help me? I want to hear your music. So I come over there and I play the music, and he's sitting there just looking at me, like waiting. Okay. So then my assistant was like, he wants to hang out with you next week. And I was like, for what? He's like, I think he's trying to fuck you. That's what my assistant said. And I was like, oh, okay. Now I get it. So now no more communication. Now you know to be hands off with somebody. A number of producers come in and make the approach, and you threaten to punch them in the mouth, or threaten to knock their head off for talking to you like, or looking at you like you're a woman. When you approach a real man about his masculinity, you're going to get a real reaction back. It's a difference when a guy walks in a room and when a man walks into a room. And a man don't take the same things that a guy will accept. So always be the man in the room. And that's always been my whole thing, and have lost businesses because I don't bend over in that way. I don't compromise. I don't play gay roles. I don't kiss a man. I don't do that shit, because the man card means everything.
Wow. So let's unpack that. So what are your thoughts on that, Michelle? Particularly, well, first about the Diddy stuff. Do you believe what he was saying about that?
100%. There are too many stories and too many men and women that have come out and talked about Diddy and others that's what they do. That was what they did. It's just hearing it now, and everybody should know it's truth. Innocent till proven guilty in court, but the evidence doesn't lie. There's just too many video recordings, and there was too many witnesses. And that was his biggest problem. He wanted to have his parties big and grand. And like you said, it's a cult. So they were bringing that in, and everybody was there. So it's really too hard to silence hundreds of people that have been there. But yeah, of course, I do believe that. And I'm glad that he walked away. He's like, no, I'm not doing it. He's right. There is a difference between a man who is confident in his manhood. He's not going to act the same or react the same as a guy. or somebody who has something to gain if he gives up a little piece of himself, and he doesn't go that way. So good on him, and I'm glad he made it plain. There was nothing left to the imagination.
Right. Now, the second part he said about the idea about acting. So I know Allie just put in here, she said, well, good for him, because even Denzel Washington sold and kissed a man and he calls himself a Christian. So I want to get your thoughts on that, because you have background, you've trained actors, you've acted in the past. Do you think it's too far for someone who is Christian to play a role that is, a homosexual role, or something like that?
I think that's a challenge. It's a challenge every time I would read a script.
Mm-hmm.
And it depends on where you are. So I won't speak to when he took that role, because I know as a Christian, I've evolved. But there are so many things I've done that I was like, oh my gosh, Lord, the videotapes or the camcorders I'm so grateful I am not in the Instagram generation that my children are. But I was like, y'all gotta watch what you do, because 90s, we were acting a fool out in the fields, and so I want to tread lightly on where you're at as a Christian and your beliefs, because again, we're supposed to have a regular relationship, and as you grow in your relationship with Christ, you're able to turn away from those things that you know and recognize as sin. And so yes, now if he were to do it right now, yesterday, tomorrow, and say, okay, I'm going to take on this role, I would say, yeah, you're not.
Well, he did. That was the bizarre thing about it. He just did it. So all these years, Denzel Washington has been, he's always been one of my favorite actors. I think he's brilliant. He's a brilliant actor. He never kissed a man. He never did. And this recent role that he did, where he played in the sequel to Gladiator, he kissed a guy. He played he played a gay character. So it was just like, it was very strange. Now, it wasn't like overtly, sexual or anything like that, but he did. It was this character was not one that he's played in the past. It was very different.
I watched the movie. To me, I didn't relate to the two. I understand the comment, and yes, from a Christian perspective, you've got to set those boundaries. It's really tough when you're in. Again, I'm going to say it's really tough when you're in that industry to be able to. And we know those actors that have, and there are actors that, Kirk Cameron, for instance, that will not kiss another person that is not their spouse.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
That will not kiss people that are not their spouses. They will not do those love scenes, like a kiss on the lips. There are the lines that they draw for performance.
Yeah, I know it would be tough for in the past, I've done a lot of theater, some movies, and I've done not same sex, but I have, done romantic, scenes and things like that. But I do understand the idea of it's not real. It's all, movies, and you're in front of lights and cameras, and people are telling you to see certain ways and this and that. So I don't know, but I know I wouldn't do a same-sex role. I wouldn't do that. But like you mentioned, this Hollywood, I think the whole Hollywood now is just it's demonic. It's too much. I think maybe 8% probably are not. And when I say Hollywood, I mean mainstream Hollywood. You do have some people who are acting, but it's not, they're doing like they're not like these huge celebrities that we see. Yeah. But most of mainstream Hollywood is just wicked to me, just wicked. And no place for children. I definitely agree with that. And I think that no place for children, unfortunately. And it was something that, I always wanted to do. I did. But now when I look back on it, I think, well, maybe that's why God kept me out of it, because it's just so wicked.
I've worked with children and taught to parents and getting them into the industry. And I had to make the tough choice where some of my kids wanted it. And here I am owning a theater production company and having access and knowing the industry. And I didn't allow them to do it. I didn't even allow them to be in modeling. And I'm glad now that I didn't. because it's seeing everything. And I'm glad my mom did not allow me in Southern California to go into that Disney route or Nickelodeon route. And a lot of my friends were right there. We could have been extras. We lived down the street. My mom did that. And I'm glad that it didn't happen, because I can only imagine what I could have gone through. So yeah, God spared me for a reason. And again, that entire industry has got to be taken back, because let me just be clear, the arts and music are God's. Those belong to God. And so Satan has defiled it. He has done everything with it, and he has claimed ownership to it, but it is not his. We've allowed it to go this far, but God can take that back. And we as Christians, those of us who stand up and do something about it, we can take that industry back. We're just so reliant on the big money makers, and that, not enough people see our films. We have to do it anyways.
Exactly. I 100% agree with that. And speaking of the music industry, that takes us to Usher. So a viral video clip recently went out of a married woman at an Usher concert. And she just letting it all hang out. And after the concert, her husband asked for a divorce. So I want you guys to take a look at this clip and let us know if you think she went too far. Here you are. This is clip 5. Okay. So, Michelle, married woman there, was she disrespectful?
I mean, and they were yelling that he's a married man, which was interesting in the background.
Oh, right.
He's a married man. She's a married man. The entire thing was, okay, this is 1 Timothy 4 to me. This is 1 Timothy 4:1. This is a seducing spirit. When I first saw it, I was like, okay, right there. There is a Jezebel. There is a seducing spirit. And she almost looked like she was entranced.
Right.
It didn't look normal. If you've ever seen that in real life, I have seen that in real life. It's hard to break out of that. What's interesting about this is the average person. She's got the cameras all around, all her friends cheering on. It's like, people going to the strip joints or something like that, and you're thinking you're at a girls' night out, and this is the wrong girls' night out. Both sides, yes, it was disrespectful and to herself, and she probably just thought, oh my gosh, this is my idol and he's picked me, and it makes you feel like I'm the one out of all. And I'm just speaking as a woman, like all of these beautiful people around here, and you picked me to sing to. And he has this big thing where he gives them the cherry, like that's his stick right there. This is the thing, and that people come to him and he's like, yes, you get the cherry or you get this. He does this a lot. And I understand for the husband that I'm sure there have been wives that are full on adulterers, right? Sleeping with somebody, actually making out with somebody. That is not what happened here, but on a great big stage. I'm sure he is not going to hear the end of it from people. It was probably too much for him to say, this is enough. Like, nobody's going to let me live this down. It's national. You're a TikTok. It's viral video. I don't know. It's going to have to operate in forgiveness. I don't know if that's going to work, but The whole thing was wrong.
I mean, she went too far. She went way too far.
This is where I say I gotta go.
Yeah. It just, you know, first of all, just the closeness. You know, he was like, I actually thought they were going to kiss. But she was just right in his face. She's she's definitely lusting against, you know, for this man. She's lusting for someone other than her husband. And then the cherry, I mean, she laid, you know, stooped down and let him put the cherry in her mouth. That was ridiculous. I'm
telling you, that's what he does. And there's so many clips of that. That's why this one to me was like, oh, that's so embarrassing. But it's embarrassing on all it's embarrassing that he's just still that kind of sex symbol. Like, that is embarrassing. He's not my type. Like, that whole thing was embarrassing. Why are you all up in somebody's personal space?
Well, that's what he does.
Like, you ask if they were single. Like, nothing about this is wrong. I mean, is right. And nothing about this is surprising.
Right.
So you just have to, for us, watch your environment. Pay attention to where you're going. Pay attention to what you're doing. I know I'm taking my adult daughter to a concert. I'm like, oh, Lord, don't let me lose my mind. But I'm going to take this child to a concert with this boy band.
Right. It happens, though. I mean, like you said, music is so it's just it makes some people do certain things, and you get caught up in the moment. I mean, that was beyond, though. That was beyond. I mean, I get being at I've been to concerts. I saw Backstreet Boys. I saw, you know, Jay-Z. I've seen Kevin Campbell. I've seen obviously Maxwell. I've seen a bunch of people. And you do get excited, and you hear the songs, and you're singing to the songs. But if my favorite artist came up to me with a cherry and dangling it over my mouth, I would just like maybe hold it out of his hand, and I probably wouldn't have been eating it. I mean, you know, I'm really weird like that, eating stuff people had in their hands and things. But that was way too far. I mean, of course she was embarrassing her husband. She was embarrassing her husband. She embarrassed herself.
I don't know if they have children. Okay, so let me be honest. Yes, it's wrong. I don't know where their marriage is at. So I'm not going to be even quick to judge. I'm like, whoa, this is all wrong. I love the chat is blowing up. This is gross. This is entrancing. So really, I go back to what I said about music and I've said it before on other podcasts, but there is a demonic element to a lot of the music, and some of the musicians are coming down and saying, when I wrote this was influence. These songs are trans-like. And when I tell you their songs I will never let my kids listen to, and it might seem innocent, but I'm like, no, they're getting more open about how demonic their songs are. They might seem innocent, but when you say the words out loud, you are repeating things over and over. I want you to think about what God says about his word and meditating on it daily and speaking the word out loud. There is something when you say something repetitively, over and over and over. And in these songs that are seductive, and you're singing them and you're playing, and then the music is playing, and we don't know what went into creating this music, which was not godly in many cases. We shouldn't be surprised when not godly things happen as you're listening to it and as you're in these concerts and it is surrounding you. That is what Satan does. That's how he has perfected it.
Right. You're absolutely right. And our children, like you mentioned, most importantly, are so susceptible to this type of stuff, this witchcraft in this music. As you mentioned, they are so very malleable, and so we have to protect them. And the hard part is, they always got their headphones on and listening to all kinds of things. So we have to continue to talk to them about this music and help them to understand that they can't get caught up in it, because you can be like this woman, making a fool of yourself. And now the video has gone viral, and she's now lost her husband. He's filed for divorce.
Oh my goodness. Again, Be careful what you listen to. Be careful that everybody is watching everything. So we just have to be more mindful. And yes, it's wrong. And I don't know where she's at. I don't know that she's Christian.
Right.
So, so let me just put that out there, guys. Yes, it's wrong from a Christian perspective. If they are a Christian couple, yes, but we know that this society has all of these relationships where you have TV shows where there's like 7 wives and 5 wives or something like that. So we've got all of these shows that don't support. We've got a nation at large that doesn't even support having a marriage that is a man and a woman that stay together. Like they don't even believe or promote that. So they see this as normal.
Right. And speaking of these singers, one of these demonic singers that's a newer pop star is singer Chappell Roan. Have you heard of her? She was new to me. I'd never heard of her, but apparently she's a big pop star right now. Her name is Chappell Roan. And she was just on the Call Me Daddy podcast. So you guys remember that podcast? That was the one Kamala Harris went on during her campaign. So this singer went on, and she is, I don't even know if you wouldn't call it bisexual. She would screw anything and everything, man, woman, whatever, beast. And so she was on there talking about that. And then she also talked about mothers. And so this is a viral clip. It's gone viral of her describing motherhood. So I have it here. Let me see here. Just want to show this really quickly. All right. Let's see here. Take a look at what she says here.
All of my friends who have kids are in hell. I don't know anyone. I actually don't know anyone who's like happy and has children at this age. I have like a 1-year-old, like 3-year-old, 4 and under, 5 and under. I literally have not met anyone who's happy, anyone who has like light in their eyes, anyone who has slept. All of my friends.
So there she is. So she went on this, but this is just a clip. But basically, they had a conversation about how motherhood is miserable. And most people who have children, particularly younger people like 20s and 30s, now I'm not talking about kids, but I'm talking about younger women, are miserable this day and age because they have kids. What is your response to that, Michelle?
She is an ungrateful fool. I have little respect for her anyways, and her comments are nonsense. So this is a byproduct of this generation, which is going to catch up eventually, right? They promoted this, even just feminism to an extent, promoted women being independent and not having children and having children later. And really, this was just the enemy's way of deconstructing and destroying families, because we're going to get to a point where there aren't enough children being born. And having children when you're younger, I am so glad I had my children when I was young. And I'm going to tell you, the 20-somethings that I've talked to, even my own daughter, just turned 26 last week. Happy birthday, shout out to Laura. But she's not happy because she wanted a family. She wanted to be very young and have children because she realized, like me, her happiest moments, I was young and energetic and running around with her and going everywhere with all of my kids. And it was great. Of course we don't sleep. We're raising kids. How do you think she is where she's at right now? Because a mom didn't sleep because she was busy being a toddler or she was busy being a baby and making a mess everywhere. How dare you? We need generations of women that see motherhood as beautiful and having children when you're young and you can chase after them and you have her energy. And God created women with wombs and bodies that operated and functioned very specifically for us to have children in this, 10 to 20 year window optimally. And then it goes on further and further. Yes, because of science. And we're lucky because we have good medical care now, but we were meant to have children young. And I'm not talking about like teenage young, but though I had my kids very young, it's nonsensical to say that. And I also want to call out the fact that, are they happily married?
Right.
Because we have a culture of single motherhood. In fact, it's really sad that in African-American families, just going to say in Black families, the rates of single parent households are astronomical. So she's talking about young moms, but are these young moms by themselves? Do they have a partner who is helping? Is there a dad in the picture? Like, what are they doing? Are they trying to work multiple jobs? Because most of the women I talk to with the kids, we're tired, but we're happy. And we usually say, these are the best, it's the best thing that ever happened. Like, I'm really glad I have my kids. Yeah, I want to party some more, but I'm happy I have my kids.
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to just say what you said about the married part. You know, when I was young, you know, and when I say that, I mean like just 21. When you 21 and up, I didn't even like kids. Before I had my son, I didn't like kids. You know, I was not one of those young girls who always wanted to babysit, or you know how you have some friends, some girlfriends who always love, oh, you see a baby, oh, I gotta hold your baby, can I hold your baby? That was not me. Never me. I never liked kids until I met my husband. You know, so I think that's the missing link a lot of times with many people. Some people are not born to love kids. Some people are not born to, you know, you say you want to be, you knew from when you were a little girl, you got your first Cabbage Patch doll or your first Barbie, you wanted to be a mom. No, not everyone is built that way. But sometimes, a lot of times, it connects once you find your husband, once you find your mate, the one that God has brought to you, then you start to get those motherly instincts. And that's what happened to me. You know, I met my husband, you know, we got together, you know, we formed a life together. And then we said, we want to have a baby, you know? So I think that's, like you mentioned, people are missing that step. And then with modern science now, a lot of these women are able to have babies and not mates, no partner, no husband, no boyfriend either. They just, you know, getting it from, you know, science, you know, in certain ways. And, you know, in a way, it's supposed to be a blessing for, you know, a couple, but now women are starting to do it on their own. And that can be hard. That can be stressful. It is a big thing to be a parent. You know, a big thing. It can be stressful to do it on your own. I know it. My mom did it on her own, but the difference is in my mom's generation, even though she was a single mom, she never pushed us to be single parents. She always said, find a husband, or let a man find you, get married, then have a baby. You know, she still made it, emphasize that single motherhood is tough and it should not be the goal. But it seemed like now it's backwards. People are saying that's the goal.
Well, I mean, now we promote it in shows like 16 and Pregnant. And let me tell the audience, I was 16 and pregnant. My daughter, I had her when I was 17 and turned 18. I was a single parent. I came out here, I went to college and worked nights with my child as a single mom. Met my husband and we got married young. We met when we were 22. So we got married right away. 5 kids later. And KJ, I'm laughing because my husband still doesn't like kids. We've raised 6 kids, and to this day, my husband's like, I don't like kids. I like my kids. I like my
right. That's how I am. That's exactly how I am.
So there's a difference. And for me and my children, even with my oldest daughter, she was my reason why, not my reason why not. This is perspective. This is knowing that God gave you a child, and whether you are single or married, he gave you that life to raise. And he never said you were going to be happy doing it. But if you do it right, your children will rise and call you blessed. You are appointed and anointed to have that child and then to train up your child in the way they should go. And if we have more Christian parents, they'll realize they're supposed to give them word. They'll realize they're supposed to bring them back and draw them to how God created the family and how he wants children to be born and raised. And again, that woman, that girl, that artist is foolish. And if she doesn't want to have children, so be it. But there are millions of women that have children and that are happy, and they go back and they reflect once they catch up on their sleep when they're in their late 50s or 60s.
Right.
That's when I'm going to sleep, because my youngest is still 7. So, and I still homeschool my group.
Yes, indeed. That was well said. Well said, Michelle. The chat is going off. Let's see here. We have I bitch slap Satan says, got some tears flowing. Good words. Yes, indeed. That was. Wendy said, amen. Amen. Yes. Allie said, I had the best mom. All 5 of us kids raised up and called her blessed.
Amen.
She was a wonderful, godly woman, and I sure miss her. Me too, Allie. I miss my mom every day. My mom died young. She died in her 50s. But I miss her as well. And she was a good woman and hardworking woman. And I miss her too. So I'm right there with you. Well, that does it for us tonight, folks. Oh my gosh, we got in late, but we still stayed on for the full hour or so. Thank you all for checking in with us. Don't forget to hit that like button if you have not done so. Please hit that. That really helps to support our channel. And if you haven't subscribed, please hit that subscribe button. Share this broadcast. Folks, if you know moms who may be struggling with motherhood, or share it with them. People who say we regret voting for Trump, or many people regret. Let's share this with them to let them know, no, we don't regret voting for President Trump. Share this to people who may be interested in the whole Hollywood and the culture and Diddy. Share this with them in a DM on your social media, timeline. Share it, please. That would help to support the channel as well. And also, if you so inclined to do a super chat, super chats help to support us to continue to push out Christian conservative content. All right, Michelle, final words for the audience tonight.
No, I just love that you guys were here up late. But again, we were living KJ and I, our best mom lives.
Right.
Before we came on, I'm having kids screaming, kids crying. There was a fire. It was chaos. But that's why I love this. I love being able to be honest and share our stories and, even our backstories. It's great to be in a group, even though we don't see you, we see you in the chat of like-minded individuals, and being able to tell the truth, spread God's message in truth and love. That's what we do here. So thanks, guys, for another night of being able to do it.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And we will be back on Thursday night at 9 p.m. right here on Christian Conservative. If you are blessed again by this conversation, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe. We're here to stand on truth, speak life, and fight for faith and family. Until next time, keep your eyes on Christ, your heart rooted in truth, and your voice unshaken. God bless.
Bye.